All right, everyone, and welcome back to another roundup edition of On the Margin. Today, I am joined, as always, by my magnanimous co-host, Mr. Mark
Ah,
Yuska.
magnanimous. Love it. All right, I'm gonna do speed reveal today. So I am wearing the Bitcoin pants, right, for a happy Bitcoin Friday. But I was gonna wear Pokemon socks, but I decided to go with on-chain monkey socks, and I'll explain why.
Nice.
So I was gonna wear Pokemon socks as a shout out to Colleen Sullivan, who's probably listening to this tomorrow during her Saturday run, about the time I'm eating my second Saturday donut. So shout out to Colleen for being better than me. Um, and her handle in Pokemon Go is Bitcoin 21 million, and mine has got Bitcoin. And tomorrow afternoon, we will be uh, playing together online as we chase Haxorus
Oh, no
during
way.
Community Day, and that'll be fun. But so I was going to do that, but then I realized that next week, before we do the next episode, June 15th, is a really, really big day. It's a huge day. One, I've declared it the crypto equinox as we go from spring to summer. But more importantly, it is the day that the Bitcoin or the on-chain monkeys dimensions project will be inscribed on Bitcoin. This is amazing. This is 3D generative art. So first of its kind, and it will be inscribed on January 2009 Satoshis. So 300 of them, one of ones. Super exciting. Shout out to Danny Yang and Amanda Terry for getting it done, and good things too. But very cool.
Love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it's going to be a big day. It's been a big week in crypto, actually. So maybe we could start with kind of the two big stories. Yeah.
I didn't notice. Did something happen this week in crypto? I mean,
Yeah. Actually, I caught something. I was picking into something. It was pretty niche, but the SEC sued Binance
you
and Coinbase.
always do the hard work.
I
You
know, right?
always do the
Yeah.
hard work, Ippolito.
Hey, I scour the tape. But this is what I came up with. So, people would probably have known this. This was splashed across the cover of basically every mainstream media outlet. Obviously, we've been covering it pretty extensively at Blockworks. But there are two suits that went out this week. One was against Binance. The other was against Coinbase. They're getting mixed up together in the headlines, but they're extremely different suits. So to drastically oversimplify, the claims made against, or the allegations made against Binance are much more serious. So the defendants in the Binance case are Binance, so that's Binance, the international entity, BAM Management, BAM Trading, and Binance CEO CZ. The claims are Binance, BAM Trading sold unregistered securities. So they specifically named BNB and BUSD, BUSD being Binance's stablecoin. Binance commingled customer funds, which should be familiar for those of you who followed the SBF FTX debacle. So that's not great. Binance operated as an unregistered exchange. There was wash trading on Binance.us. I'm pretty sure also there were allegations that CZ owned and controlled some of the market makers for both international and US. Binance and CZ solicited US customers, a whole bunch of things. The list goes on. Not great. Coinbase, just to get through the details there, is a little bit different. So the charge specifically against Coinbase was that it's operating as an unregistered broker and sold unregistered securities. So they named a couple of the unregistered securities, which also caused headlines because Solana and Polygon's Matic were included in there, along with Filecoin, Sand, Axie Infinity, Cardano, some of the other ones. And they specifically mentioned the staking program that Coinbase has laid out, which allows customers to stake 5 different crypto assets: Atom, ETH, Cardano, Sol, and Tezos. So that was a long mouthful. What did you think about the events of the week, Mark?
Look, I get it. It's not in my best interests as a registered investment advisor to criticize openly and in a public forum the person or persons who regulate me. But I can't help. This is crazy, and there's no other word for it. It's, well, actually, the crazy thing was the second part where he made a request. He who shall remain nameless made a request to seize assets of Binance, no matter where they were. I'm like, due process, innocent to proven guilty. remember, these are allegations in a
Yeah.
lawsuit, okay? Not a criminal complaint, a civil lawsuit. I mean, it's wild. It's we are back to the wild, wild west. I mean, so let's separate the Binance from the Coinbase, which I think you did a really good job because they are very, very different. But
They're very different.
let's, on the Binance, this whole idea that, okay, people are saying he commingled funds. No, there's allegations that he commingled funds. We don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Um, but that has to actually be proven, and it actually has to be, adjudicated. So that's one. Two, this idea that he sold unregistered securities. Here's the problem. No one ever called these things securities before they were sold. So now you're saying they're securities, and BUSD, it's a stable coin. Are you now going to declare, okay, are these guys going to declare all bank deposits as securities? All money market accounts are securities? Come on, to be consistent, that's what you would have to do. So, look, I think the BUSD thing, the Binance thing for me is related to FTX, right? We know the CZ sold Alameda to Sam. Sam bought it back, paid a bunch of money, a bunch of FTT. The problem is, this was described to me yesterday by this really interesting guy, investor. He said, "Why would you ever give your competitor a nuclear weapon with the football, right? With the detonator, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gave them an asset that you used to lever up your entire operation. That was a bad decision."
Just for the audience's knowledge, some might not be aware, there was actually a relationship between Binance and FTX. Binance was one of the early large investors in FTX originally, and Binance got a really big chunk of FTT as part of, you were just describing the details of that deal. But as kind of a flashback to what FTX was and Sam were doing, was they had their own token that had an extremely high valuation, extremely low constrained float. And they were basically propping up the price of that asset, pledging it as collateral and levering up. So that's what Mark's referring to. And
Oh
says,
yeah, no,
a little nuclear bomb. Because if you dump the FTT, which Binance did, it sank the whole ship in like a day.
Yeah, and so you basically gave your competitor a nuclear bomb to explode you, and that's exactly what CZ did. So I will argue there's a little bit of quid pro quo, tit for tat going on here. You can remember Gary and Sammy were really tight, right? I mean, they were friendly, and actually super friendly, irregularly friendly. But anyway, so the Binance thing is what it is, and I think you overlay that with, oh, they're the CCP. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just because he's got a Chinese name doesn't mean he is the CCP. The company is registered all over the world. I think their headquarters is in the UK. I think he's in Dubai. Most of their entities are not in China. So making this a China Cold War thing is kind of weird. But that's that. The Coinbase one is this one, like literally are Colleen and I going to have to register our Pokemon Go assets as securities? Like literally? If the definition of security now is anything where an appreciation is anticipated, that's kind of what they're saying, then pretty much, art, any collectible, my house is now a security. I have to register it. I can only operate with brokers who register as securities brokers.
Right.
Really, Gary? Really?
So the question, there's a lot going on here, right? So just to set context and sort of add some more filters for people who might not be as familiar with the situation, there's a little bit of jockeying going on in between the SEC and the CFTC to say, what is your domain? What is my domain? There's competition in between, inter-regulator competition.
Yep.
And I think a lot of this can be viewed as the SEC basically trying to extend their territory, right? Because all of this is new. This stuff's going to end up getting regulated, but we don't know what goes to who yet.
Yep.
There's a great graphic here. Let me see. I think I can share my screen where, because I think that especially from the perspective of Coinbase, what's been frustrating here is they have, asked and begged for some kind of framework for how to tell, what they're allowed to list and how they're allowed to operate. The SEC allowed them to go public, and then boom, and really, people, sort of the on-chain, the Twitter sleuths basically have been implying that one of the commonalities between what the SEC decided to label as a security here was what was featured on the Binance and Coinbase site. So you can actually see a little Venn diagram of stuff here. But I don't know. I guess they're very different suits, and we should get some sort of legal expert on here because
Yeah.
I think tactically one thing that's it, like I'd always heard this, right? Regulators pick their battles in a strategic way so that they don't attack someone with a gigantic war chest that can essentially afford to fight them, and then they'll look silly. It just looks like they're fighting so many different battles right now. So they've got the XRP battle
Yeah.
that
Yep.
we've been hearing whispers that we might get a ruling there in the next couple months. They're also deciding to take on at the same time Coinbase and Binance, which have gigantic war chests. Like
Yeah.
now they've sort of the whole rest of the industry, right? They basically made this an existential battle for crypto in the US.
Look, I mean,
So
and we've been talking about this, right? This is the then they fight you phase.
yeah,
And it, and the sad part is this isn't the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. It's the end of the beginning, right? I've
I agree with that.
been talking about this for a while, like years, that look, 2009 to 15, no one cared. Literally, no one cared. No one in Washington, no average person, no one cared. I mean, the people working cared, right? I mean, the people working on the projects and Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he, she, they are, and a handful of dedicated people, pizza guy, he cared. And I should remember his name. I need to remember his name to give him a shout out. But um, there weren't that many people who cared. And first they ignore you. So that's what everybody did. Then 16 started to get a little real.
Yeah.
People started to talk about it. It was on CNBC, but mostly it was they ignore you. A bunch of nerds and geeks. I mean, then they laugh at you. Ha! God, these nerds and geeks playing with their magic internet money. I mean, what is this internet wizard guy and all these people and Brock Pierce with the hat and they just made fun of us. And okay, but starting last year, 2022, and I think it goes to 2027, then they fight you. But I contend that the good news, if you're here, if you're a Bitcoiner, if you're in crypto, if you're a builder, Bidler, Buidl, I don't know how to pronounce that. We've already won. I actually really believe that. I believe we have already won, and it is inevitable. And look, the people who have the most to lose, banks, insurance companies, brokers, the agents that accumulate $7 trillion of friction a year. And just let that number hang there for a second. That is 6 to 8% of global GDP every single year can be erased by this technology, by this innovation. Well, that's somebody's revenue. And Jamie and, Moynihan and all these guys, they don't like that. They don't want that to happen. So anytime you see regulation through courts, that is a preemptive strike against disruption. And there's lots of examples.
I agree with you on that framing. I will say, in terms of Binance, there is some very real stuff here. The SEC did their job. They compiled a whole bunch of internal documents, and I got to say, it looks horrendous for Binance. There are a couple chat logs specifically here that I think there was a thread someone on Twitter, Adam Cochran, put together where they've got the head of BD and the former compliance lead at Binance talking, it is extremely, and this is the sort of tagline that everyone's heard about this. We're operating as an effing unlicensed security exchange in the USA, bro. Talking about how it would be dumb to hold BNB, how the strategy is just, compliance is a sinking ship, how this compliance lead refused to be the chief compliance officer because he was worried about his personal liability.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much is brutal. I mean, they really did get him, and you know, I don't know anything that I have no special information. I will say, I think for crypto to fulfill its promise, I would love price discovery and the majority of trading volumes to move off of these, you know, off-chain, unauditable, offshore, exchanges. I
Yeah.
just do not think this is the way. I
Yeah.
don't think it's the way, and that's why I just wanted to highlight they're very different suits. And in terms of the Coinbase thing, I just think they're the ones who have at least my sympathy. Like they have really tried their best to play by the rules. I can't imagine. It's frustrating for me to hear it. I can't imagine how they feel when Gary says, "Hey, you can just come in and register." Oh, did you see that Twitter community notes fact checked him on that? That was so funny. Oh my god. So I don't know. I think they're very different suits. The stock had a really tough week. I will
Mhm.
say it was interesting to watch Bitcoin and ETH price action. They
Yeah.
initially on the news of Binance, they went down.
Yep.
When Coinbase got announced, they bounced. And I
Yep.
think so. I think the market sort of knew that this was happening. It got priced in a little bit, and it probably wasn't as bad as people thought, judging by the price action. And usually, when there's horrendous news and there isn't a new low put in, I mean that's a sign. So I I
Again,
continue to stay bullish on
absolutely.
this.
Yeah. Look, 100%. Um, you think about the severity or the scope of the news this week in terms of the primary regulator is going after the largest two exchanges in the world. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big week, and there was a pretty big drop. I mean, a 10% drop in BTC pretty quickly. But to your point, it recovered quite nicely, and ETH as well, and a number of the other coins that were named didn't really fall off a cliff and go to zero. Um, I think more importantly, the mood of the community, right, or communities, right? There's multiple communities, was was pretty resilient, right? It wasn't all down in the dumps, and now it wasn't oh let's go get the pitchforks and storm Washington either. I think that's probably a good thing. But I I don't know. I think this is the inevitable path through disruptive innovation. And then we've seen it over and over. And I remember, and most people listening to this don't, when they introduced the bill literally to try to kill the internet, there was
Yeah,
a lot of, there was a lot of people thinking, oh, this is the end. And, AOL is going to be out of business and there's going to be no need for Google and eBay and Yahoo. And you know, the people wrote this big long bill literally to try to keep the telephone companies' revenues coming in, and it didn't happen. Now, this is a little bit different. This isn't actually a law. This is kind of trying to back end into law through the courts. And the courts, to your point on the war chest, this could go on a long time.
yeah. That's why I just am a little surprised at it. And maybe there are people that understand this sort of dynamic better than me, but even in previous SEC enforcement actions, they've been very targeted and it seems like they've picked battles that they know they can win. They're
Mhm.
really going for the jugular here on all the big ones that have gigantic war chests and are capable of fighting. It seems like they maybe have risked spreading themselves a little bit thin.
Yeah.
I sort of wonder if they view this as a specific window where there's political appetite to pursue these sorts of
Yeah,
fights
that's a
because
really good insight. It's a
you
really good
know
insight. I think that's
the
right.
The administration is probably going to change soon. They're probably just trying to open up all of these suits that frankly are going to take years. These won't even be decided in the current administration.
Yeah.
So
Oh, hey, look, the guy that appointed, Gigi to the top, he may not be in office very much longer. So my
yeah,
guess is there's not a lot of appetite to keep him around. In fact, there was a group of lawmakers this morning I read that want to go after him right now. Like, don't even let him survive till the end of Biden's term. So, and he's been chastised by the judge in the XRP case multiple times, not just once, but twice, where he basically said, "No, you're overstepping your bounds, and this is not accurate." I think the thing with Binance, and people say, "Oh, why are you defending Binance?" I'm not defending Binance. I'm just saying there is a thing called due process. You can't seize assets before you have an adjudication, I don't think. But here's the thing: what they do outside the US, it's not under our jurisdiction. And their unit in the US, yes, they have to follow the rules. The fact that the rules were not clear at all is a fact, right? The rules were not clear. And there was no requirement to register. There wasn't. These assets that are now being called securities were not at the time that these firms, both Coinbase and Binance US, came into being. So it's kind of a weird argument to say, well, now they're securities. So you should have known 3-4 years ago that we were going to call them securities and you should have registered.
yeah.
That's a weird, I don't know. That seems illogical to me.
Hey everyone, we'll get back to the show in a minute, but just wanted to let you know that we've got our permissionless conference coming up. This is the one that we do with Bankless. It is the biggest and best conference in DeFi. It's going to be in Austin, Texas this year, September 11th through the 13th. If you've been in crypto for a while, you know that bear market conferences are the best conferences because those are the ones that all the alpha's at. This year, we've got a phenomenal lineup of speakers, and the topics that we're covering are insane. We're going to be talking about ZK tech, roll-ups, account abstraction, MEV, app change, the whole suite of stuff. I cannot wait myself. So, because you're a listener of this podcast, you're also going to get a discount. Type in PODS20 and you're going to get 20% off your ticket. Click the link at the bottom of this episode and go get it now because prices go up every 2 weeks.
I don't have any special knowledge about the Binance suit. I will just repeat what I said before, where I don't think this is the future of crypto. I think we deserve better, more transparent market structures than what Binance affords. And, I don't know if CZ has done anything wrong. I will say, having perused some of these documents, it doesn't look great. It looks pretty damning, but that'll get decided in the coming months and years. I think one of the challenges that, frankly, regulators, but we're going to have to face, I don't know how much you've ever looked into the whole fourth turning sort of theory, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
sort of a broad frame. Parts
Yep.
of it have really resonated with me over the years. And one of the things about fourth turnings is that there's a lot of small problems that all kind of bubble up at the same time.
Yep.
I feel like that's a pretty accurate descriptor of where we're at in terms of society right now. And frankly, I think when I've thought a lot about this, crypto securities regulation, stuff like that. I think the things that are actually broken here are the accredited investor laws and frankly, the Howey
Oh,
test. I just don't think it's just like, in crypto, people try to like put a P&L on something like Ethereum. And it's like, this thing isn't a company. That doesn't make any sense. That's like trying to put a P&L on oil. It
yeah.
is illogical.
Again,
So
perfect analogy.
so
Right?
they are going to have to, I think this is the tough thing, right? Is that regulators are going to have to do the work of creating a new framework for this. And they're going to have to do it with AI. They're going to have to do it with a bunch of these new technologies
Oh, wait,
that
wait, wait,
don't
wait.
fit
Michael,
neatly into our boxes.
Are you saying that laws written in 1933 and 1940 perhaps aren't adequate to deal with innovation in the 2020s?
Yeah.
Is that your contention?
Like, how does staking fit into securities law?
Oh my,
That I just,
it doesn't.
that is, it doesn't.
I mean,
There was no analog to that. They
look,
weren't thinking that was going to be a possibility.
and as I said, if this bastardization of the Howey test to basically say anything where you expect gain is now a security, that's a bad that is a precedent they do not want to set.
No,
Because
I think that's
I'm telling you, every piece of real estate is then a security. Every single one.
yeah.
Because no one buys real estate thinking, oh, I think it's going to go down. Have you read Twitter lately?
Yeah.
Everybody's promising you to become a millionaire by buying well, they don't actually tell you to buy real estate. They tell you to buy their book to tell you how to buy real estate.
Yeah.
So actually buy the real estate and it might work. But, it's just so nonsensical. And I get it, right? If your goal is, which I believe, to choke off this innovation. So that's a big, crazy goal. But if that's your goal, right, to choke off crypto, and everybody says, well, they just want to choke off crypto, not Bitcoin. Oh, no. They're coming for Bitcoin too, y'all. And
that has been the most frustrating. I haven't responded to any of those on Twitter, but that is the worst take.
Oh, it's the worst take.
It's the worst take I've seen about all of this. Okay, all the people who are saying, oh, well, Bitcoin's not a security. All these other, sinning currencies are securities. Do you really think this is about securities law here? Do you think that's what's going on? So the state apparatus will do things that are in its own interest. Which crypto of all of them have the most interest that are most orthogonal to like the current interests of the United States of America? It's Bitcoin. It's the stated intent of Bitcoin to disrupt the United States dollar. And you can say it's not blah, 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 but enough people say that you could understand that that's how they might think, right? So you think that this is about securities? I just think that's so naive. That's just clearly not what's happening here. So
no, it's
I hate that take.
Yeah, it's a crazy take, but it's the take that, I think we're prone to Hatfield and McCoyism. Just as humans, right? We're prone to tribalism. We're prone to conflict. And I think it's just easier to hate someone else than it is to love, everybody. I just think that's where we are today.
I just had to look that reference up that you just dropped. Is that, Phil? Is that a very well-known feud, the Hatfield-McCoy feud?
No. I just made it up. Yeah. The Hatfields and McCoys were two clans in Tennessee, Kentucky kind of area. Like hillbilly. I mean, and I don't mean that in a derogatory. I mean, they were people that lived.
Yeah, I'm looking this up. 1863 to 1891.
Yeah. And they basically just fought like all the time. So it's just a kind of rural, not hillbilly, a rural version of, gangs.
Gotcha.
But it was familial. That was familiar.
Yeah.
You were either, but it goes back to Romeo and Juliet, right? I can't remember I should be able to remember the two families.
Capulets and the Montagues.
Montagues. There you go. Capulets and Montagues. So it's the same thing. Capulets. And it's been going on for millennia. It is the nature of humans to war, right? My son had to write, this is kind of fun. He had to write, my 12-year-old had to write a story, a creative story, historical fiction about the Spartans and the Greeks, right? That's who fought.
The Spartans were one of the Greek city-state. The Spartans and the Athenians.
That was it. Spartans and Athenians. Wars. And the whole Trojan War thing. And so he wrote this really cool story, and he did not use ChatGPT. So I give him credit. He thought about it. He's like, why don't I just put the prompt in? I'm like, and he actually said, no, I'm not going to do that. So that was cool. So he actually wrote it. It was pretty good. Very interesting. And anyway, but look, warring factions have been going on forever. And, maxis and non-maxis and crypto haters. And my whole thing keeps coming back to this. The innovation of blockchain technology as an operating system for the internet of value, or the truth net, as I call it. That's what we should all be fighting for. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are fighting for it.
One thing I've been thinking about, let me pose, because this would be probably an unpopular opinion, especially in sort of crypto circles, but I've been thinking about this. So we talked about slow horses, and that it's great Apple show. Everyone should watch, but it's gotten me nerding out about spy stuff. And I've gone down a whole bunch of
Yeah.
Wikipedia rabbit holes of late. And there are some crazy stories that intelligence agencies have done. And I
Oh,
think if you're at the highest level of, intelligence and defense for a country, I think they probably do think like this, and I'm glad they think like this, highly adversarial thinking. So from your and my perspective, we're sitting here being like, these open networks are awesome. But I think I'm really trying to put myself in the shoes of, like, if I were responsible for, you know, the integrity and defense of the United States, I'd be really nervous about the value proposition of crypto, because there's a strong, it's like, hey, for critical infrastructure that powers the US, like our power grid, I don't really want that to be open. I want that closed, baby, internal to the US. So I do think if you really adopted a super adversarial sort of cap, that's going to be I do not know how that's going to play out with governments, because I think there's a very rational, they've got some very rational hangups about the things that we
hey,
talk about in crypto.
the revolution will be decentralized. Decentralized is tough for nation states, right? Um, Look, we've spent a lot of time, like thousands, plural, of years centralizing,
Hmm.
right? You know, we've done a really good job making these power bases. Now it leads to little complications like wars and famines and other things and dictators and oppression of certain tribal groups because somebody drew a line on some map, right? I mean that's the crazy part. And now you got it. I mean, I just saw the thing down in they're arguing about it down Alabama, where they're now arguing about again drawing lines on maps for voting rights. And thankfully, actually, we have a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court, and two, not one but two, flipped to the other side and said, "No, this doesn't make any sense."
So, I used to have this kind of framework for, you just mentioned we've been centralizing for thousands of years. And so I have this framework in my head of, yeah, well, we used to be very centralized, but like, post Egyptian Empire sort of time frame, we've actually been decentralizing. And that's led to America, blah, 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 all
Yeah,
this great stuff.
yeah,
And I think if you actually look at history, is not, it's not like a linear road from being highly centralized to decentralized. It's more like the vast majority of human organization in empires and nation states has been extremely centralized, with little pockets of decentralization that are not actually, it's not as correlated as we would probably like to think in America, the style of government and the success of a country. And in fact, probably open liberal democracies are the exception and not the rule for most of human history.
oh my
And the
gosh, yeah,
scoreboard, a classic thing that people do, you were mentioning the Peloponnesian War. Back that Thucydides recorded a whole bunch of it, and he did a good job of recording kind of what was internally what people in Athens were thinking, because this is such an overdone comparison. I almost don't want to bring it up, but the comparison between modern day the CCP in America, in this case, the analogy would be the CCP to Sparta and Athens to America. One is
yeah,
more open and liberal. The Spartans were extremely oppressive. It was a very small sort of oligopoly at the top, and Athenians were like, well, we have a more advanced form of government, and they lost. They lost. And actually the stronger thing to correlate the success of nations is their geographic position and property laws, having strong property laws.
yeah.
So I don't know if it's actually as clear as I wish it was like this, but I
No,
don't think that a
again, it's a
historical
really
analysis would support that idea.
no, it's a really
Interesting to
good
think about.
insight. But part of it is in ancient times, you had no ability to really know what was happening in other decentralized nodes, right? You
Yeah.
couldn't travel there. You couldn't see. I mean, smoke signals maybe, but or fires at night. But they're really, over long, long distances, you really didn't have much interaction. The average person never traveled. So it really was little centralized clusters. With the advent of written text, now you could transfer information around the world, and then with media, and now with internet technology, whew, talk about the ability to centralize. I mean, think about the sun never set on the British Empire
Yeah.
for a long time, with pretty bad tech. Now the American empire gets to take advantage of internet technology, and now China, as I will argue, figured out that the next war we fought with chips, not ships. So they're spending all their time and effort on 5G, AI, all the things to dominate in cyber. And what's happening?
Yeah.
Things are changing, right? Things are moving to the renminbi, to the Chinese node, I guess. So I do think it's a very interesting conversation.
Yeah. Who knows? It's very, very difficult to predict these things. And,
Actually, the best
you know,
part, I mean, I love this, best hour of my week, but what I love about it is it's like the one place where we can actually have conversations about ideas instead of facts and events.
mm,
And that is a lost opportunity.
I agree.
Eleanor Roosevelt, and there's probably somebody before her, said, small minds talk about people, average minds talk about events, and big minds talk about ideas. And not that I have a big mind, but I really enjoy talking about ideas, especially with someone who brings the historical knowledge that you do from all your studies. But
Being
I
a nerd.
just so no, but so few people will actually sit down with you anymore and have a conversation
Mm,
about something that isn't what they saw on TV last night, or some event, and worse, just about people, kibitzing about people. But I loved your point about Athens, bigger, badder, faster, stronger, but they still lost. And it reminded me that this quote about never doubt that a small group of focused, I can't remember the exact quote, but focused, dedicated individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And you don't might not want to label the 300 as right the epitome of world changers, but they did change the world in a way. Um,
yeah.
just like another little plug for Unchained, they did pick 300 probably for that reason. So it is the OCM 300 on June
Mhm.
15th. But anyway.
Nice. Yeah, it's an interesting period of time to that we there's an asymmetry in terms of not the Athenians wrote a lot more down. We don't know almost anything about Sparta, but they were super interesting way that they organized their society. But I agree. The
Well, and
ideas.
and the other point on that, again, back to big ideas. Think about just the incredible societies that existed thousands of years ago in Latin America, South America, in Egypt, in parts of Africa. I mean,
Southern
there
and Central
were,
America too.
yeah.
They're finding there was a lidar with lidar technology. That's the laser mapping. They found these massive superhighways connecting all these Mayan cities, and now just I think within the last month this got discovered, and now people are thinking they were much more advanced than we had originally
Yeah.
thought.
Although
Super
I,
cool.
I will, I made the point that it was harder to know what was happening, in other parts of the world. Yet there's some amazing stuff. Like I guess there's everyone knows Stonehenge, the big rock thing. But I guess there's one in is it in Cuba or it's somewhere down in the Caribbean, and it's precisely 666 miles from the pyramids, and it's like what, and it just weird stuff like that. That like how did they get that right? How could you do that with little papyrus boats and anyway?
Yeah, I want to touch on. It's been a really slow week and past couple of weeks for macro, so I just want to touch on it. When I was trying to look for stuff for this week to talk about, Honestly, it's been sort of thin.
Mhm.
You've kind of got we're still in the same period of limbo that I think we have been for a period of time. Nothing big, like mortgage rates still feel too high based on where housing levels are at right now. There's
Well,
like,
Michael, to that point, think about this. 6 weeks ago, all we talked about was macro. The
I know,
world was ending, the bank runs, everything was macro.
yeah,
And now no one's talking about macro. That's a weird, it's, you're up in the New York area with the apocalyptic kind of, smoke and the orange skies and all this. And but it's weird. And I had someone who was traveling up there and said it was so quiet, so silent because everyone's
it
inside.
was. It was
And
weird.
but this is a quiet that's weird because there was all the talk about, oh, what's the Fed going to do? What's the Fed? No one's talking about what the Fed's going to do. I haven't heard any
Yeah,
talk about this
yeah.
upcoming meeting, other than the skip versus the pause. Um, but you're right. This You have to dig really hard to find somebody talking about. No one's talking about inflation. Where's all the talk about inflation? Where did it go?
I don't know. I'm with you. You know what? It's the only thing that's doing well, right, is the AI narrative. And I
Yeah,
actually like there's a Mike Green tweeted this out. I was thinking this myself, but people kind of cite like, oh, look, like Stan Druckenmiller was one of the investors in Nvidia. You know, Stan Druckenmiller is a trader, a self-described trader. I think an investment from him can be described as like, hey, he saw a mid to short to midterm opportunity, right? Instead of being
yeah.
a long-term investor. I still think Nvidia is just, it's 35 times sales. People are dredging up the Sun Microsystems talk about what 10 times sales would mean.
419 is
35
the
times.
high. All right, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say it. I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
419 is the high.
Well, the
Not
thing
going back.
is, so when something's untethered from its fundamentals, it could double from here. I have no idea. I mean,
No, no.
it's just the one. You think this is the top?
It's Intel 2000. $120 Intel. Intel never sniffed 120 again ever,
Yeah.
and might
Y- You
not,
know.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
Intel's down 60% from there. And again, it's a good company and they make good products. But you can't have $1 trillion market cap if you only make $1 billion. You just can't.
hmm
Stupid.
The AI stuff is interesting. I heard someone describe this a little while ago, and it sort of stuck with me about comparing, crypto to AI in terms of being disruptive. And the Clay Christensen model of disruptive is it's the incumbents miss a new innovation because it's not conducive to their business model. Not that they don't get it or it doesn't make
Right.
sense, but
Right.
because IBM used to sell large computers, $500 million computers,
Yes.
or sorry, $5 million computers to a big corporate client. And then when the personal computer came up, it's not that they missed it; it just didn't make business sense. They're making
Right.
$5 million sales of a single computer. Why would I sell one computer to a household that's going to be a crappier customer? So they actually made a logical business
Yeah.
decision to ignore it. And then someone else basically saw that, made a much larger market, and blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. AI and crypto are different because crypto is disruptive to incumbents. It serves a niche small market today, but the bet is that that market will grow and become bigger.
Yep.
AI actually reinforces advantages that incumbents have. So it's not disruptive from that standpoint. The
Mhm.
value that is going to accrue to the AI value is going to accrue to like Nvidia, Google, Microsoft, these other gigantic companies. And it's TBD, right? In between, like there are all these AI startups, and a lot of VCs are encouraging entrepreneurs to pivot to AI, which, by the way, I think is not great advice. You should probably be focusing on the thing that you understand and know, and not try to rotate into the latest hype cycle. But
But what is an AI startup? Tell me what an AI startup is. This is the nonsense that. Tell me not. And again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but somebody tell me what that means. What does it mean to do an AI startup? That's like saying do a crypto startup. It's just a nonsensical term. It's like do an internet startup.
yeah,
No, do an internet service provider. Do a company that manufactures the chips that allow networking. Do a company that makes bandwidth faster. what is an AI startup? I mean, we got LLMs. We got them. And again, I have ChatGPT right on my computer. I don't use it. I know you use it, but there are a lot of people, they dabbled in it and now it's over. But someone's going to come up with an AI tool that's helpful to me. I've tried a bunch of them. I tried the little personal assistant one, to manage my CRM. Maybe it'll get better. It was okay, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
I like my assistant. She's way better than any AI. Pam is way better than any AI right now. Now, maybe an AI would be great. Maybe we'll have Rosie the robot from the Jetsons. I know you don't know what that is, but old people will know what Rosie the robot is. But I don't know. To your point, pivot to AI. What does it mean?
What does that mean? Yeah,
what does
that
mean?
mean?
I mean, here's the thing. We believe it. We're raising our fourth fund, and we've codified it now. We talk about the ABCDs of the digital age. Okay, that's nothing different than what we've been doing for the last 5 years. We've just now codified it into this, catchphrase: A, AI; B, blockchain; C, computer platforms, just chips; and D, data. Those 4 things are the building blocks, like ATCG. Those are the building blocks of life. Think about that for a second. There are 4 things that all of life comes from. That's pretty amazing, right? You just combine it all different ways, make the DNA, and you're on your way. But AI, blockchain, okay, so AI is a tool, blockchain is an operating system. The chips are what make the computing platforms work. Because ultimately, that's all this is. It's all just computing platforms. And then data is what allows the tools to work. It allows us to differentiate and monetize. And you're looking for things that intersect. Like we have this company, Figure. What do? They make loans on chain. How do they do that? They use an AI tool that instead of taking a month to get your home equity line of credit, you get approved in 5 minutes or not approved, and you get your money in 5 days. It's just using an AI tool. It's not really that big an innovation, but they did it. And they use Plaid to look at your bank account. Okay, great. And then they issue the loans on chain. That's interesting. That's an intersection of the two, blockchain and AI. We have another company called Chain Reaction. They make chips that allow blockchains to be secure. They make a better ASIC. But the cool thing is they also have a new chip design. It's a design, and there are 4 companies working on this. They have a design to create a chip that would revolutionize data. That's a big word, revolutionize. But think about it. Today, you and I can have secure data if we have it. We can encrypt it locally. If we want to send it, there are ways to encrypt it. Most people don't, right? They send their SMS text. We've all seen the commercial. They don't use WhatsApp, so it's not encrypted. And, oh, I didn't know you had a rash. Okay, I'm not going to meet with you today, or I'm not going to give you that raise. But anyway, so like leprosy, right, in the old days. So, but then when it gets to the data center, it's encrypted. But every time someone wants to interact with all that data, it has to be decrypted. How many times have you gotten your Visa number hacked, your password hacked? All these big hacks happen because you have to decrypt the data to interact with it. Well, these guys think, and I'm not techie enough to know if they can do it, they think they have a new chip design called a privacy protection unit that will allow you to interact with the data without decrypting it. How big is that TAM? Big. Like every computer in the cloud would have to use these chips, not NVIDIA chips. So I'm not saying they're going to take down NVIDIA. That's not my point. But they might.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for listening to On the Margin. I just wanted to take a quick moment to let you know about a very special offer that we have coming out of Blockworks Research. Now, many of you will probably be familiar with our platform, but Blockworks Research is the most blue chip spot to get research, data, governance, models, and a whole lot more about the leading DeFi protocols in the space. I've leaned on our analysts time and time again to explain complicated concepts going on in DeFi to me like I'm 5 years old. They can do the same for you. If you invest in DeFi or are just interested in it, it is an absolute no-brainer. As a listener of On the Margin, and to say thank you all for listening to the show, you can use Margin 10 for a 10% discount, and that gives you access to everything, which would be weekly in-depth reports, live data, all of that good stuff. So again, that's code MARGIN10 for a 10% discount. Link is in the show notes. Sign up now. Thank you later. Well, it's sort of that's the whole law of capitalism, right? It's whenever there is someone who makes an enormous amount of profits, eventually someone's going to see that and go try to steal those profits. Modern examples that people would remember. Netflix, when they crushed streaming, what happened? Everyone and their mother released a streaming platform. It was pretty visible, right, that this was going to be competitive with Netflix. All the analysts said it was going to be competitive. Took a little longer than everyone thought. And suddenly, yeah, it was. Now we've got Apple, we've got Disney, Hulu, all these different competitors. And yeah, it's been bad for
But
Netflix.
real innovators keep innovating. And you mentioned,
True.
offline, the new Apple goggles. And everybody's like, oh, that's so ridiculous, so expensive. Here's the thing. They solved a couple of the interesting challenges. Oculus, it's dark, can't see, you're isolated. Now you look kind of funky in the commercial wearing that Apple, what is it called? Apple Vision? Apple Vision.
Yep. Apple
Vision
Vision
Pro.
Pro.
Vision Pro. But you can see the other person. You could actually have a conversation without taking the headset off. And then you can go back. I don't know. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I have the same thought as you. I sort of had, I can give you kind of the more negative thoughts and then the more positive thoughts, because I had both of them. So the negative was, I think at a high level, I remember when the iPhone came out, and I just thought, even though I was 15 at the time, I thought to myself, I want that so badly.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't have that thought for this. I'll be honest. I looked at it
No,
and I
that's
thought
easy.
there were a lot of,
Okay. I'm going to tell you why, though. Because you are now the person, 30 something, who was saying, I will never pay $500 for a phone. I have my flip phone. No way. And the Apple stock went down 40% in 2 weeks when the iPhone was released. But my 12-year-old is like, Dad, when are we getting it? When are we getting it?
That's such a good. All right, see, that's a great point. That's a really good point. The other negative was just that, it was a little bit of a bummer that it's got the the wire. It's not wireless, and there's a battery and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
The battery only lasts 2 hours. That was the negative. The positive was, I think, I looked at when Facebook came out with their Oculus. I looked at that and I was like, I don't want to be in this world where the animation is crappy. And what am I going to do here? I looked at this and you can squint at it and see the future of computing. Like that, I think the decision to go AR instead of VR was night and day better.
When they showed the pinch to make a screen.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's from every movie in the last 10 years. That's from every
movie. Exactly.
Right? That's totally. Iron Man. That's Iron Man with what was her name?
Jarvis.
Yeah. I mean, we're close. Now we're not.
I agree.
Close. We're not that close, but that was amazing, and
I thought so too.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Just calling it spatial computing.
Yeah.
Genius. Mad genius.
No mention of this AR hypey buzzwordy stuff. They just showed you how you can use it. Apple's always been so good at that. And the first version of this, I mean, this is sort of a done comparison here, but when the iWatch came out, or whatever that thing that Apple Watch, people were like, this sucks. Then, it was not particularly successful when it first came. Yeah, exactly. Now they've had time to iterate on it, and it's phenomenal.
Yep.
And I feel like in terms of just pure muscle memory, Apple's got to be one of the best at this, just shipping hardware. They really don't miss on many of their products. They have a really high hit rate. And if you give them a couple years to iterate on this, I think it's going to be And you know what? I think the thing to look for is one, analogy that's always struck with me, or a concept, is this idea of skeuomorphism. So probably there will be a lot of apps that are like kind of skeuomorphic, and it's like, okay, I can see this in front of me in 3D, and that's cool. But eventually, designers like app builders will start to make apps that were not possible in 2D. That will take a couple of years, I think. But once that happens, that's a whole new race. That's a whole
Yeah,
new design space they've opened.
perfect, right? My only negative for the Vision Pro was I don't need my spreadsheet to be 215 inches. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
don't really need that. I'm okay with my 15-inch screen on my laptop, which is an Apple, by the way. And you happen to be wearing the best earphones on the planet. I mean, the sound of the AirPods Max is there's just nothing close, nothing close. And anyway,
I have a question for you. Now it's my turn to question. Mark, when's the last time you spent 5 or 6 straight hours in an Excel model and you were looking at it all the living in the weeds? So maybe for you, the 50, yeah, exactly.
no, you got me. You got me.
So
Right?
the 15-inch screen might be fine for you, but an analyst who lives in that might be feeling a little differently.
100%. You got me. That no, and look, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect because know your audience and know the different users, and the idea that Zoom slash whatever meetings, Teams will feel more immersive. It's pretty cool. All right, that's a
Yeah.
real improvement. That's a real improvement. The thing, oh, the thing that I'm like real, and again, they just use the exact right word. They're such geniuses. Memories. They didn't call them videos. They didn't call them pictures. They called them memories. That 3D video of the child and the dog, holy moly.
Yeah.
That is, I'm in. Like that is the Harry Potter kind of moving pictures in the book, or I'm in. I'm totally in because memories, that's what it's all about, right? A static 2D picture, it's nice. A 3D video, a 2D video, it's 3D, but it doesn't feel 3D. This felt immersive. And calling it I just loved it. Calling it a memory. It was just so good. And I
Yeah.
love every day. I love that, my phone pops up old pictures, sets it to music. It's a little cheesy, but I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah. I thought they just
That's
crushed
a
it.
use of AI that I'll pay for.
You know what? I also think that young people are much better at using technology than the olds. I would, I'm maybe a young transitioning to an
Hurt
older,
me.
but
Hurt me.
but they
Hurt me.
but even for me, I uh watching a young person use like an iPad or an iPhone, they use in ways that you know, it's
My
and so
2-year-old, my 2-year-old grandson, my
yeah,
2-year-old grandson is swiping and turning things on. The intuitiveness,
yeah,
it's
and
and they're digital natives. And look, I've said this before, wrapping it all back to crypto. My newest granddaughter, right, who's 0 or 6 months, will never, ever, ever
yeah,
have a leather wallet. She'll never have one. She'll never use physical currency, ever. That's mind blowing if you stop and think about it for a second.
yeah. But so completely agree with that. And the thing about the Apple platform was I could see, especially for someone who, like, let's just flash forward to 5 versions of this from now from Apple, right? They're gonna fix the external battery pack. They're gonna have longer battery life. They're gonna make these incremental improvements that make it today. I'm like, I probably wouldn't get this today to, a definite hard yes. And you could imagine someone who's grown up thinking about computing in a 3D environment like this. The thought of using a 2D computer would be like you and I going back to watching movies on a 20-inch screen in black and white.
Black and
Yeah,
white.
it would be just as bad as that. So
Yeah.
that I think, yeah, I think they've, and you know what else? Credit to them. Apparently, it took 7 years. They've been working on this for
Yeah.
7 years, and they were. This is the rumor that it was 50-50 of whether or not they were going to launch it. And apparently
Yeah.
Tim Cook was the one who banged his hands on the table and said, we need to launch this thing.
Yeah. Although I did
That's
see the one thing I thought was cool. He didn't put it on. Zuck put it on. Tim didn't put it on. Tim should have put it on. But
yeah.
I want to give one other shout out on Amazing Tech that we talk about, what is an AI company? And I think that's a bad thing. But here's an example of a company that is using AI in a way that I am just so psyched about. So my big thing, like in life, is early childhood education, right? I don't know if I've told the story before why that is, but I got a tour of a youth prison many years ago, and the warden asked, what's the number one reason people go to prison? And we're all like, I don't know, single parent family, poverty, drugs. Nope, 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 nope. She let us go on. And she finally said, give up. I'm like, yeah, I guess. She said, the score on the second grade reading test. I'm like, what? So yeah, if you score below a certain level, you will fall behind, you'll be ostracized, you'll drop out, you'll go to prison. We build prisons in this country based on the scores in counties on the second grade reading test. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, so we set a foundation and we give to early childhood education. Well, there's this thing called Synthesis School that is backed by SpaceX people and their ideas to be better at education. And one of the things that I've said for a long time is, why doesn't every student have access today to the best teacher in every subject? We know who that is. We have video of those people. Everybody should be taught the basics by the best teacher. And then we can have the local be more facilitative, conversational, workshop. Don't ask someone who doesn't know how to teach to do what this amazing person. And so they've created an AI tutor as a companion to bundling the greatest teachers on the planet in each subject. And my mind, it's like so amazing. And so you've got this AI where the kid can ask intuitive questions, and this amazing teacher then comes on and explains the concepts. That is big. And that's how we catch up with China, who's kicking our butt in education, particularly in STEM education. And I'm all over this, and there's probably other people besides Synthesis that are doing it, but blown away by what they're doing. And kudos.
If I was I do not believe in being a single issue voter, but if I was a single issue voter, it would be around education. Just a value that got driven into me by my parents at a pretty young age. So
Look,
I completely agree with you.
We can fix the score on the second grade reading test with simple things like Head Start and these types of programs, and Khan Academy and Sal Khan, one of the great people on the planet. And he is one of the great teachers ever. I'll listen to the guy all day. I don't know, something about his voice, something about his manner. I mean, the guy's amazing. And these guys, he got some good stuff for adults too. But I just think that innovation, that use case, right? So Synthesis School is a school, but now they're integrating AI into curriculum and building AI tools. That's AI, right? This idea that there's going to be some mythical AI that's going to, push a button and destroy us all. I know. I'm more hopeful that it's a tool, along with blockchain's an operating system, chips are the facilitators, and data is the oil, and those four things become our ATCG.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have any nuanced understanding of how AI should be regulated. You could imagine, right? I sort of buy the argument that LLMs they're a little bit deceptive in terms of how advanced they really are. The whole point is to mimic human language, and we are, might be jumping ahead in terms of conclusions for how smart these things are. Okay, you could still look at this technology and see how in even 10 years, it might actually be Skynet like AGI. I don't know. And
Sure.
for that, you probably do want a little bit of regulation, but how do you do that? Because I think it's just, these are all very difficult, challenging questions. And frankly, I think I need to think a little bit about how I would want government to react to this.
Yeah.
What do I think is like reasonable? How do I think it's reasonable for them to react? Because I
Yeah,
don't
but
think
to
they're
me,
doing a very good job right
you
now.
regulate the users and the use cases, not the tools. We can stop all of the risks of AI. Just outlaw chips,
Yeah.
outlaw AI chips, right? Right now, just outlaw 'em, and we won't have the problem. Well, that's dumb because then we wouldn't have the synthesis school thing. So you regulate the uses and you regulate the use cases, but don't flip out about the tools. We don't need to slow down innovation, right? That's what the SEC tried to do with crypto. We don't need to slow down innovation. We need to encourage innovation. And the whole thing about jobs, I keep saying this over and over and over again. Every technology that has ever come along has eradicated jobs. Every single one. But we have more jobs today than any time in history because it creates more jobs than it erases. It just does. And that's because humans and creativity, which they're not gonna replicate that. I'm sorry, not ever. I'll say it, and I'll probably be gone long before it ever actually happens, if it does happen. So hopefully not soon. But no way. There's no way. No AI could have predicted the crazy stuff we talked about this morning. No way. Right?
I agree.
There's just no, not possible. And I'll defy anyone to show me that it's just not possible. No way.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Mark. All right, I think we've got to end it here. Best hour of my week, my friend. I will see you here sometime
Thanks,
next
Michael.
week.
Have
Cheers.
a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
You too.